Welcome to Missouri Law Matters, a podcast all about your Missouri courts. My name is Matt Hamner, and I'm a judge on the Court of Appeals in Springfield, Missouri. We thank you for being here today, and we hope that you enjoy listening to and watching this episode. If you've been enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on all the various places where you find our podcasts, on Apple, Spotify. Plus, don't forget you can also see our podcast with full color video on YouTube. So check us out there, and don't forget to like and subscribe to us there as well. Also, don't forget to check out all of the social media pages that are being utilized by the Missouri courts, including the Supreme Court of Missouri and the Missouri courts pages on Facebook, Instagram, and all the various places where you might utilize social media. I'm really excited about our guest today and to talk about a topic that's really of interest to me. The concept that we're going to discuss today is legal deserts. And no, I'm not talking about a lawyer's office in the Sahara or other places like that. The concept of legal deserts is the idea that there can be places, particularly in rural areas, in the state of Missouri and elsewhere, where there may not be enough access to lawyers and to the courts. It's an idea that has been around for years, but it's one that's become even more pressing in more recent times when there has been a dearth of lawyers in some areas of the state of Missouri. It's an issue that the Bar Association of Missouri and the courts are keenly aware of, and that they're looking to take efforts to try to curb the tide of. Joining me today is a guest that I am very excited to talk about, who is working on a special project involving legal deserts, and I wanted to have him on today to talk about the concept and the project as it's working through. Joining me today is Judge Corey Moon. He is a circuit judge from the 2nd Judicial Circuit here in Missouri. Judge Moon, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
I've drug you away from another meeting that you were attending here in town to come in and sit with me. And again, I'm really grateful that you took the time to come do that today.
Absolutely. I'm really happy to be here.
Now, Judge Moon, one of the first things I always do when I have guests on, judges, lawyers, whoever they are, I always like to give the audience a little bit of a flavor as to kind of their path, how they got to the law, how they eventually found their way to the bench, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we'll break it up into pieces. Kind of where did you grow up, and what was kind of your path to college and law school?
Sure. So I grew up in the little town of Canton, Missouri. It's about 2,500 people up in northeast Missouri. My parents are still living up there. I have 2 sisters, graduated from Canton High School, and then I went to Truman State University, became a Bulldog. Was on the varsity swim team for 2 years there. Between my sophomore and junior year, kind of decided that law school was something I wanted to look into. My uncle was actually a judge up in Clark County for 32 years. He was an associate circuit judge. And so he kind of was the inspiration for me to look into the legal path. And so started studying for the LSAT. Was able to do well enough to get into law school. So I went to the University of Missouri School of Law in Columbia, came out of law school and went to practice in Kirksville with Jay Benson. I did that for 10 months and then got a call from Jake DeCoster, who was the prosecuting attorney in Lewis County, one of the longest serving prosecutors in the state. He gave me a call and needed an assistant to come back. So got an opportunity to go back home to Lewis County. Worked for him for a while as an assistant prosecutor and an associate attorney. Then I decided that I wanted to try to be an elected prosecutor. So I actually moved over to Knox County, Missouri. I got elected there. And then the associate circuit judge spot became vacant in Lewis County. So I decided to seek the appointment from the governor's office and was fortunate enough to get that appointment in 2021 in May, and then ran for election in 2022. Was fortunate enough to be elected. So that's what I've been doing ever since. Been the associate circuit judge in Lewis County since 2021.
That's excellent. Certainly, I've talked to several guests on the podcast, and it's been an interesting mix of people. The different paths that they have found to the law over the course of their lives. And some of them are in your situation in that they had other people in their family who were either lawyers or judges. And so they kind of had that path. And then others were like me that, I didn't have any lawyers or judges in my family. So it kind of just came to me in other ways. Was it just the family connection, or was there something particularly about the law that you're at Truman State, you're thinking about what you're going to do with the rest of your life? Was there something particularly other than the family connection that kind of pulled you towards the law?
Yeah, I think my personality, my family knows this, but I've always been kind of a rule follower. So my friends know this from school. I was always the kid that wanted to, not tried to push the boundaries. I was always the one that said, hey guys, we can't do this. So, I've always had that kind of mindset. Rules are rules and they have to be followed, and the same with the law. So it was just kind of a natural thing that I gravitated towards because of my personality and how I've always been.
Well, and certainly the law, we do have a lot of rules.
We do.
So you get to thrive in that environment.
That's
That's
right.
wonderful.
That's
I'm
right.
glad to hear that. Now, you've been associate circuit judge up there since 2021. For folks who may not know what an associate circuit judge does, what do you do? And then what types of cases do you generally?
Sure. Associate circuit judges in rural counties kind of do a little bit of everything, it seems like. So in Lewis County, in our circuit, I do the criminal cases, all the traffic cases, criminal cases through preliminary hearings for the felonies, all the misdemeanors. I hear orders of protection. I handle probate estates, small claims hearings, guardianships, and conservatorships, which go along with probate. I don't do juvenile. I do family law, civil cases up to $25,000.
That certainly is consistent with my experience with associate circuit judges. And certainly I was one for a little while as well, but you're the Swiss Army knife.
Right.
You get to do a little bit of everything. You're the judge that's there every day and handling stuff as it comes through the door. So that's outstanding.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great variety. No 2 days are ever the same. You really get to work your mind a lot because you're dealing in so many different areas. A lot of lawyers now have to specialize in certain things because the law is so vast and there are different areas that are so specialized now. So really, as an associate circuit judge, you get to exercise your brain and really touch a whole array of areas of the law. That's one of the things I love about my job.
That's great. And that's one of my favorite things about being a judge as well. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I know in addition to all the work that you've been doing and as associate circuit judge, that you've also been very active with both the Missouri Bar and with our judiciary, at working with various committees and groups. Tell us a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing in addition to, just your day-to-day responsibilities as a judge.
Yeah, sure. So I was involved in the Young Lawyers Section Council. Missouri Bar has the Young Lawyers Section Council, which is its elected board, and it's kind of the community service arm of the bar. So they do a lot of the bar's community service projects and put on CLE programs for younger lawyers or lawyers who are new to the practice of law. And so I was involved in that for a few years. And then in 2022, I was elected to the Board of Governors. And that's the body that governs the Missouri Bar. Missouri has approximately 30,000 lawyers, and we have the Bar Association that every lawyer is a member of. So as part of that, the bar has facilities that we have to take care of. We have money, obviously, that we have to manage from everyone's membership fees. We have publications. We have outreach programs. We have fee dispute resolution programs and different kind of committees that are part of the bar that are committees that help to bridge the relations between lawyers and the community. I've been involved in that since 2022. And one of the really exciting things that we just started, or that is going to happen actually tomorrow, we have the first meeting of a rural practice committee that's been appointed by the president of the Missouri Bar. So it's a special committee that the bar has appointed to look into the issue of legal deserts or areas that there aren't sufficient number of lawyers to help people in those areas.
Excellent. And that's a perfect segue into kind of what I wanted to talk with you about today, and what I'm excited to talk to you about today. I have to make a small confession. When someone emailed me initially the idea to have you come on to talk about this topic today, I thought the email said legal desserts. And I got very excited that we were going to talk about dessert today.
I love dessert.
But then I clarified that no, it's legal deserts. So I certainly understand what that concept means, but explain to the folks that are listening, folks that are watching, explain to them a little bit about this idea of a legal desert and what that means and why it's a problem.
Yeah. So a legal desert is defined by the ABA as areas that have less than one attorney per 1,000 residents. So that's kind of our baseline that we're looking at. We have several counties in Missouri, and particularly up in my area, where you may just have the judge and the prosecuting attorney, and those are the only two lawyers in the county. Some counties don't even have someone there to run for the position of prosecuting attorney. So you really only have the judge. It's a huge issue for people who live in those counties because they don't have someone there that they can go to help them have access to the courts to represent them in any disputes that they might have, or to get advice on things such as estate planning, trying to take care of a family member who might need a guardianship or different things like that. So what the bar is looking into is this a problem? Is it a problem that we don't have lawyers in these areas to help these folks? If it is a problem, how big of a problem is it? And what are some of the solutions that we can come up with to try to get more access to justice or more access to attorneys for the folks that are in the areas?
Now, for the people at home that may not have a concept, when you talked about where your circuit is located, you talked about Kirksville, you're kind of northeastern, north central part of Missouri. Would that be inaccurate?
That's correct.
All right. So you're north of I-70, in between St. Louis and Kansas City, kind of in the middle of the state. And so it's not the most populated area in the state of Missouri, but there's a lot of land and it's pretty spread out. And certainly those types of places are the types of places where we're seeing a decrease in the number of attorneys. As associate circuit judge up in that area, what's been your experience? Is this something that you have personally seen? Do you see it in your courts? Do you have people coming in complaining about the lack of attorneys in the area or complaining about their lack of access to this type of thing?
Yeah. So in addition to not having someone to run for prosecutor in some of our adjoining counties, there are spots with the local public defender's office that have gone unfilled for several months and in some cases years because they aren't able to recruit people to come work for them in those offices. I've had litigants, like for a traffic ticket, for example. I've had several people come in and for one court appearance, and they'll ask if there's any attorney I can recommend for them. And of course, courts can't recommend certain attorneys for people. They all set their case over and tell them that they need to try to find one. And they'll show up the next time and say, well, Judge, I've looked and there aren't any attorneys that I've contacted that will practice in your area. So that's probably been the best example that I can give personally that I've seen.
Yeah. And I certainly think that that's an important thing to mention because as a judge myself, I get that question all the time. And I know you do too.
Yeah.
People will come up to you and say, hey, I've got this thing. Who should I use as an attorney? Judges were not allowed to give recommendations with respect to attorneys.
Right.
We have to stay neutral and unbiased and all those things. So, if you have a friend that's a judge, you're not likely to get a lawyer recommendation from them. I'm sorry to say, and it's nothing personal. It's not that they're mad at you and they don't want to tell you. It's that they're not allowed to. I'm sorry that you're having that experience. You mentioned the public defender's office having the openings. Why do you think, and I know the committee hasn't done a lot of work yet, and I know this is all stuff that you're going to be looking at, but just based on your experience, why do you think that as a bar, we are struggling to recruit lawyers to practice in rural areas?
I think there are several different factors. These are just my own personal opinions. People think that they can't make as much money in rural areas. I think there is a lack of social life for younger lawyers coming out of law school who may not have found their someone or may not have any connection to a county. And that can be a scary thing to go into a new place and not know anybody. And especially if you're trying to hang out your own shingle and try to make a living going to a place that you don't know anybody. Maybe you need to be able to go out to find somebody to, marry and settle down with. So there are a lot of younger lawyers who are looking for that. There are a lot of modern conveniences that some rural areas don't have. Unfortunately, we don't all have the $10 drink or whatever it is that you need to get started with your day. I think schooling is another thing. People think that the educational opportunities for their kids may not exist in the rural areas. Those are probably the biggest ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
And certainly the factors and pressures that I would think of in my head are the same ones that you have talked about. You and I think, are both unique in that we both grew up in the areas.
Yeah.
And, we got our education, we were successful in law school and then moved on. But we came back, and a lot of our classmates, I'm assuming of your classmates, a lot of the talented folks who were products of the school systems in your area, they didn't necessarily, they moved to a city or moved somewhere else and sought their fortune and sought their career. And that's a struggle that smaller towns deal with as well, is how do you get kids that are talented, that are smart, and that can contribute, how do you get them to come back to your community when they go?
Yep. Yep. What is there to entice them to come back? And this is not a problem that is unique to the legal profession. We're seeing it in the medical profession as well, and other professions that are out there too. So it's not just lawyers that are struggling. Maybe you were going to ask about this, but there are other states who have tried to tackle this issue for lawyers. And so one of the things that we're going to do as a committee is look at some of those programs that exist in other states now and hopefully come up with something even better to try to fix the problem.
Do you know what some of the things are that other states are trying to correct these problems?
Yeah, one that sticks out in my mind is South Dakota. They've had a program for about 10 years now. Their program is in certain municipalities that qualify or certain counties that qualify. Lawyers can go and sign up for, I think it's a 5-year contract, and they will have a certain amount of their student loans paid off if they fulfill that contract. And they are required, I think, to stay a certain number of years beyond that. So they've had 18 people who have gone through the program, have entered into those contracts. And out of the ones who have completed their contracts, 14 out of the 18 have continued to remain in those communities. So they've had a fair amount of success with that program.
It's a pretty good retention rate, considering, as I would expect, incentivizing younger lawyers to take this leap to practice in rural communities has kind of been the approach that's been taken in other states to this point.
Yeah, yeah. And, to get a program like that, it takes the Bar Association, it takes the legislature, it takes the Supreme Court, it takes everybody to kind of get on board to create that program and fund it and do all those things. We're just in the very beginning stages. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to have to look ahead to, I think.
Well, and certainly even in addition to the concept of these legal deserts, I mean, there's certainly concern in the bar, the judiciary about the number of lawyers dropping in the state of Missouri. Depending on when exactly you look at the numbers and when you talk about it, there seem to be fewer people going to law school. We're turning out fewer lawyers in the state of Missouri. And so because of that, replacing lawyers who are retiring or moving on to other professions has become harder because there isn't this pool of lawyers behind them. And, I can think of particularly, my area of like the Ozarks where I grew up, where I practiced right in the middle of the state. While we wouldn't be considered necessarily a legal desert, it's certainly getting a little drier down there because we don't have as many lawyers as we used to have. We particularly don't have as many young lawyers as we used to have.
Right.
And we have the same difficulty in finding public defenders and prosecutors and assistant prosecutors and public defenders to fill open spots because we struggle to find the lawyers to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a problem that's only going to grow as we move forward.
Especially with all the retiring lawyers, as you said, there are a lot of aging lawyers out there who are maybe looking to get out, but feel like they can't because they don't want to let their practice go and close up. And, they want to have a young lawyer to come in and maybe work under them that they can mentor and then take over the practice. It is really hard to find someone to come in to take on that role.
Well, and as I mentioned, I know you were very successful in college. You were successful in law school. When you graduated, you probably could have gone and done whatever it is you wanted to do. If you wanted to go to St. Louis or Kansas City or wherever and take a job at a big firm in the city, you could have done that. So what was it that helped you decide? What was it that made you make the decision to kind of go back home and work in a rural community?
That's a good question. I think mostly it was my family. That's where I grew up. It's what I knew. I knew the players in the rural communities that I was practicing in. I knew the judges, I knew the other attorneys, I knew what the practice of law was there. And there was a big unknown with what it would be like in a big city. I don't know even now if I've been into a courtroom in a big city. So I don't know what that would be like, but
You're very loud.
I've heard from lawyers who have been to both who say, I don't know why people wouldn't want to practice in a rural area. It's so much more laid back. Everyone's nice to each other. It's just a lot calmer. It's a lot easier. There's a lot less stress. And so I think there really are a lot of benefits to practicing in rural areas. And that's one of the things that drew me back in.
I think it's very much driven by who you are and what your personality is and the types of situations that make you comfortable. If you grew up in a small town and you like that sense of community and seeing the same people every day, then practicing in a small town is going to be right up your alley.
Yep.
But if you're somebody that likes a lot of hustle and bustle and going all the time and meeting new people all the time, and you like a little bit of chaos in your life, well, then maybe practicing in a big city is more going to be kind of your thing.
Right.
So I think it's very dependent on just who you are as a person.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But I think it's really cool that the bar and the judiciary working together, utilizing your talents and skills and all those people that'll be on the committee is looking at this issue, because it is something that's going to be very important. As part of our mission as the judiciary is not only to resolve people's disputes, but it's also to make sure that people have access to the courts and to the relief that we can offer them and the things that we can do. And if we have large swaths of the state of Missouri that don't have lawyers and don't have the people that they need to obtain that access, that could be a real problem.
Absolutely. And I want to thank President Dreyer and the leadership of the Missouri Bar for being aware of this issue and appointing this special committee to take a look at it. I think it's going to be an immense amount of work, but one, it's necessary, and two, it's something that we really need to address now instead of waiting another 10 years. Because I can remember back when I was in law school at Mizzou, I talked to some of the school leadership then about starting a rural and law association to try to address that issue, to get more students interested in, what it would be like to practice in a rural area, and maybe do a comparison of housing costs in a rural area versus housing costs in the city, and make other comparisons to, what the differences are and how practicing in a rural area really can be a great and fulfilling way to practice law.
So I'm not, of course, not asking you to speak for the committee. I know you guys haven't even met yet, so it's coming. But as somebody who's going to be on this committee, what do you hope at the end of the journey, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years, whether it's 5 years, what do you hope at the end of your work on the committee that you're going to see at the end? What's the outcome that you're really hoping to achieve?
Well, one, we have to figure out whether it's a problem or not. I think that's going to be pretty easy. We're going to figure out that it's a problem. So ultimately, my hope is that we come up with the best program in the country that other states can model to recruit lawyers to practice in rural areas and retain them. That's my biggest hope and goal for the committee, that we can come up with that recommendation.
Well, until you get the program built and we figure all that out, last thing I'm going to ask you on the topic is, do you have any advice for folks that might be listening or might be watching online who maybe are in an area where they are having difficulty finding a lawyer and they're struggling to find somebody to represent them? Do you have any advice that you can offer them as to places that they could look or resources that they could try to utilize to help out with that?
Absolutely. You can start by contacting the lawyers who are there in that community. And if they can't help you, then most lawyers will be able to refer you to another lawyer. We have legal services offices. There's one for each appellate district. So there's the legal services of Eastern, Southern, and Western Missouri that you can contact and see if you might qualify for their services. The Missouri Bar has an official directory of Missouri lawyers that you can go to their website, and they can pull up lawyers that are in your area that might be able to help you in that particular practice area that you need.
If you're on your computer, on your phone, you can search the Missouri Bar. They're going to have directories of attorneys that are going to be working and practicing in particular areas, and you can try to locate attorneys that way. And see, I already flipped you because I just thought of another question. As you're going through this concept of solving these problems with legal deserts, how do you see the advent of technology assisting with this problem? As courts coming out of the pandemic, we're utilizing virtual hearings more. We now have open CaseNet and electronic filing of cases that can be done from anywhere in the state of Missouri. Do you see these technological advances being something that can really help us provide legal representation and legal help to people that maybe otherwise wouldn't have access to it?
Yeah, I do. I know some judges don't prefer if people appear virtually. They'd rather see them in person, which I completely understand.
And some courthouses don't have the infrastructure to allow virtual hearings and virtual things. And that's something we're going to have to address too.
Yes, absolutely. I think with video conferencing, people can be able to conference with a lawyer who's maybe not in their area. They can get some advice by video, which would be a step in the right direction. The courts have developed more pro se forms, or forms that people can use to represent themselves, particularly in family law cases and probate cases. St. Charles or St. Louis, one of them has developed a kiosk that people can go to and plug in their information. Like if they want to file a small claims case, we'll direct them through that whole process. And at the end of it, spit out a small claims petition that has all the correct information that they want on it, and they can sign it and file it that way. And same with orders of protection. There are a lot of ways technology, I think, is going to be able to help people. We just have to get it out into the more rural areas where it could be utilized more widely.
And I'm hoping that as the infrastructure builds up in the rural areas to allow virtual hearings or virtual proceedings, that might encourage more lawyers who practice in areas farther away to take cases in those areas if they don't necessarily have to drive all the way there to handle a case, if they can do virtual hearings, if they can file their pleadings electronically. I'm hopeful that will encourage more lawyers to pitch in and handle cases in the rural areas.
I think it will. I think it will. Yeah, it might take some convincing.
Lawyers need nothing if not convincing.
Well, and judges.
Yeah, and judges too. You're exactly right. Judges too are the exact same way.
Yeah.
Judge Moon, I have had an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I cannot thank you enough for being here again. Last question I'm going to ask you, and I promise you this is the last one. I'm not going to change my mind. It's something I ask everybody. It's just kind of a thing. I'm going to ask you what the best thing is that you have seen lately. It could be TV, movie, sunset, 3D painting, picture, whatever it is. What's the best thing you've seen lately?
That is a hard question. The best thing I've seen. I haven't seen it yet, but I really want to see that movie, Weapons. Have you seen the movie?
I have seen.
Have you seen the movie?
I have seen the movie.
Was it good?
It was excellent.
It was excellent. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to see that.
I don't tend to be a horror guy. I will watch a horror movie occasionally if there's something to it, if it gets a lot of buzz. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that it is a lot more than just a horror movie.
Okay.
If they're marketing it as a horror movie, it is not so much of a horror movie that even somebody who doesn't like horror movies can't watch it.
Okay.
But I would encourage it. It was very cool, very twisty, very puzzle box kind of a movie. And it was very original. As a movie fan that I am, I love more original stories in movie theaters, sequels and all the stuff that comes and the IP and all the things they're doing. I really love it when they let a creative person have an original idea and put it on screen. And Weapons is certainly that.
Oh, good. So, I'm going to check it out.
I hope you enjoy it. You have to let me know how it goes.
I will.
Judge Moon, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
I want to again thank everybody for listening and watching today. If you've enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on all your various outlets where you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on YouTube where you can see our smiling faces as we talk to you about these things. Drop some comments. Let us know what we're doing. If you like what we're doing, if you don't like what we're doing, tell us things you'd like to talk about, questions that you'd like to have answered. We'll do what we can to get them incorporated into a podcast in the future. Nothing more to discuss today. At this time, this podcast will be adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
And we're out.
That's awesome.